we began with talking about the key to happiness. We spoke about why happiness is so important, some of the benefits that happiness brings us. And then we spoke about one of the ways of bringing happiness into our lives, which is gratitude, right? And we spoke about the idea of saying blessings, thanking God for what we have, the modani in particular. I am curious if anyone around the table wants to share if they did incorporate anything throughout their week in this regard, in terms of enhancing their gratitude, and if they saw, what was the effect of that practically? Anyone? Sure. Go for it.
So I do incorporate the modani and I do the Yadayim. From my bed, I have the bowl and everything like that. And so the one thing that I just incorporated today as well is after I do the modani and then it's Yadayim and then Shariat Tzar, then I go back and I just meditate. I just work.
That's great. That's great.
And I feel ashamed.
I do that too. I only started that in the past year.
If you're in the, yeah.
I don't wash my hands by my desk.
That's something very new for me.
I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate it in the sequence of the morning, but it means,
Honey, do you see me?
And
And do you see the screen behind me? Yes. Okay, perfect.
yeah,
Okay, so today what we're going to do, now that we spoke about the pleasure and the gratitude or the joy that we could gain from the physical surroundings around us, we are going to talk a little bit more about how to gain pleasure, how to be happy from ourselves. So not beyond gratitude, beyond the physical things around us. How can we be happy about ourselves? And some of us struggle with, and I think all of us struggle to some extent with the concept of self-esteem, of telling myself that I'm good enough, telling myself that I'm happy with just being me. And on that note, I'm going to ask you to turn to page 50. There is a quick exercise over there on page 50. You grab your pen. Note that there is a mistake in regarding the scaling. And you could just mark yourself, as a quick self-esteem test on where you're holding in terms of how you think about yourself. The grading will be a little tricky because there's a mistake regarding the grading, but the actual markings, I think.
no, you're the only one reading the results, so I guess it's whatever it means to, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Don't be so hard with what you said. It just shows that you're hard about it yourself. So now when you read the results, we're obligated to also. And then you said, yeah, I think it's one of the questions.
Okay, I'm going to move forward in case you didn't get to it completely. You could follow up afterwards. So the joke goes, the guy said, my credit card company is super nice. They boost my self-esteem because they always call me and tell me that I have an outstanding balance. So many struggle with self-worth, and many of our struggles with self-worth are not even based on reality. So Dr. Abraham Twersky, who was an incredible psychiatrist as well as a rabbi, wrote many books. So there's a text from him inside, which we're not going to read, where he talks about how in his studies and in his career, he's found that many people that struggle with self-worth, it's as if they're looking in an obscured mirror. You have people with the most potential, with the most talent, that seem to not see it at all. And they seem to constantly be framing themselves the opposite of what they actually are. And that's a very common issue. And this was the issue of the spies. So here you have an apple that thinks it's a grapefruit. And this is the issues of the spies, the story of the spies going to the land of Israel, coming back to the Jewish people saying, we cannot conquer it. We'll never be able to make it into Israel. We'll never, they're too big. And they said, we are grasshoppers we are like grasshoppers in front of them. And that's how they see us as well. And so we are in their eyes. Who told them that? Where were they supposed to get that idea from? And the issue was that there's this false narrative that we create for ourselves, that we tell ourselves that we're smaller than who we actually are. And that creates a number of issues, aside from the happiness issue. It also creates an issue because anytime we're challenged, we automatically assume that we're not going to be able to handle a challenge. We automatically fear the worst. We automatically fall for the fear of what the challenge is going to bring for us, as well as being sensitive. So when someone says something and they meant no harm, but when we view ourselves as smaller than what we are, smaller than what that person views us, we automatically take it to heart. We automatically say, oh, they see my flaws, they're pointing it out, they're being insensitive, and that creates a struggle. Now that would be about a false narrative. And then there are also obviously a true narrative where we tell ourselves that we aren't good enough. And the question is what to do about that. How could we boost our self-esteem and ultimately boost our happiness? So the way we're going to tackle this is by addressing another layer, a deeper layer of self-esteem, or perhaps lack of self-esteem, which many of us struggle with, perhaps consciously or subconsciously. And perhaps by dealing with that, we will come to appreciate what's my worth, what do I bring to the table, and what is my potential, what am I able to accomplish? And that is as follows. The question here is, why do I exist? So it's not so much about, could I accomplish this? Am I good enough? But there's a much more fundamental question, which is, I'm here today, gone tomorrow. Would anyone notice me? Why do I exist? Who gave me the right to exist? What's my worth inherently? And here the question becomes obviously much more fundamental. So with that, I'm going to go over to page 55, text number 3. And I'm going to ask Adi if you could read the text on page 55, text number 3.
Text number 3. Okay. God created humankind in its image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and over all the beasts that tread upon the earth.
Okay, so God created us God-like. He created the entire universe, and then he waited to create the human being. The human being was created last. And when he created the human being, he created the human being God-like. In what sense? Well, the human being is intelligent. The human being is self-aware. And most importantly, the human being has the ability to make choices. The human being has free choice. And in that sense, the human being is like God. Now, for what purpose did he make the human being quote unquote like God? That we're intelligent, we're self-aware, and again, most importantly, we have free choice. And the answer is because God created us to be a partner in creation, to enhance and reveal creation. He created the entire world, he did his part, and then he created the last being, the last creation, which was the human being. Now, creating the human being wasn't just another element of creation. But creating the human being was essentially God saying, I want a partner in creation. I want another being other than myself, other than God, to be part of creating this world, of cultivating the world around us. Now, in what sense, I ask you, in what sense do we as humans partner with God in creation? In what sense do we cultivate God's creation? Okay, so you're getting ahead of me. On a more basic, no, that's great. On a more basic level, is there an area where we are a partner in God's creation? Okay, so that's also getting ahead of me. Is there a more basic level? Birthing a child is great, but every species births children. On a physical level, I'm asking. So on a physical level, God created wheat, but who created bread?
Oh, that's not the combination that creates the value.
Again,
It's when the combination creates the value.
so what do you mean by that? Bringing flour and water together?
Like. So if Hashem makes the wheat grows in the field. But the wheat can't itself feed anyone. Without the partnership with people to harvest the wheat and to turn it into flour and to produce it into bread, then without that partnership, the wheat doesn't have purpose and the purpose can't be fulfilled.
Right.
That's what that means.
And as humans, we stand unique in that sense. Meaning all other animals, they feed themselves, they take advantage of the universe as is. They don't necessarily cultivate the universe. Human beings are unique that we come to the world with the attitude of how am I going to humanize the world around me? How am I going to make the world around me better? So I'm not just going to use the world as is, but I'm going to take animals and make them pets and make them more humanized, right? More proper. I'm going to take a tree and make a home and make a table and make a fork and a knife and take wheat and make bread. I'm going to cultivate the world around me and talk about, science, talk about technology, talk about AI, talking about taking God's creation and cultivating it, something which is not clearly created, and find that depth and harvesting and enhancing and revealing the potential that exists in creation. So in a very physical sense, the human being stands out as a partner with in God's creation. God created all this matter, and we're going ahead and developing it and cultivating it. And then on a deeper level, like many of you mentioned, there is obviously the spiritual aspect of it. And what is that? The spiritual aspect of it is God says, why did I create the world? I didn't only create the world for human beings to go ahead and cultivate it physically. But on a deeper level, I created the world for human beings to go ahead and cultivate it spiritually, to bring godliness into the world. And as human beings created in the image of God, as human beings uniquely having a piece of God within us, God breathed himself into Adam, unlike the other creations which were just created as is. We have the ability to do a kindness for someone else, or more importantly, ultimately, to think about God in our day-to-day life, to bring godliness into the world and to elevate the world in a spiritual manner. So in both of these senses, we are partners with God. Okay, that's amazing. So we just spoke about the power and the uniqueness and the importance of the human being. But over here, the question becomes, what about me as an individual? Am I important as an individual among so many others? And the answer is going to be, not only are you important because you're part of humanity, not only are you important because you make up humanity, but you are important as an individual beyond being a piece of a puzzle. You have something unique that you bring to the table that God needs you for. And let's see that in page 56, text number 4. This is a Mishnah. And Ron, take it away. Go for it. Text number 4.
Text 4.
Yeah.
That's
Initially.
right here.
Yeah.
Initially, only one human being was created. This is to teach us that one who destroys a single life is considered to have destroyed the entire world. And one who saves a single life is considered to have saved the entire world. Will we continue?
Yes.
It also communicates the greatness of God. And when a person wins many coins in the same mold, all the coins are alike. But God means every person with a mold of the first human, and yet no two people are alike. Therefore, every person must say, the world was created for me.
Okay, so that's an incredibly powerful statement. And some people will take issue with that statement. The Mishnah tells us that every person is obligated to say the world was created for me. And why is that? The reason for that is because when God created the world, every species he created in herds, he created in bunches. He created a bunch of trees of each type, he created a bunch of them. Of each animal, he created a bunch of them. The human being is the only one. Stars, he created a bunch of them. The human being is the only creation that he didn't create many, he didn't even create two, he created one. And from that one came two and came many. And what's the lesson from that? It says the Mishnah, the lesson is that we must see ourselves as the only human being that exists on this planet. If Adam were to doubt his self-importance, were to doubt his self-esteem, were to doubt his self-worth, we would be in trouble. The world would be in trouble because God needed him. He needed him to go ahead and multiply and to bring the world where it is today. Every single one of us have the same value as Adam has, as Adam had. Why is that? First of all, on a very simple level, the Mishnah says, you save one life, you save an entire world. Because every single one of our lives have the value of Adam in the sense that just like out of Adam came 7 billion people, every single one of us have the potential to create 7 billion people.
What do you mean by saved? I'm just looking at the Hebrew, it says ma'abed, which means to lose. So one human being is created, this is just that one who destroys life. Is it destroys life like killing?
Yes.
Okay.
Or spiritually, or
Or
it means physically, yeah. If someone
It's-
killed a life as well as saved a life, it's as if they saved the entire world, right? So in Judaism, life has inherent value to the point that one life compared to many lives is often, depending on the situation, not really on an equal scale. You talk about the life of a 2-year-old versus the life of a 50-year-old. We know this inherently that we don't value the life of the 50-year-old any more than the life of the 2-year-old. Although the 2-year-old has less to say for himself because life has inherent value. And part of that inherent value, as I said, is just like Adam had, from him came all of humanity, came 7 billion people. From every single one of us could come in the future 7 billion people. If one life is lost, that whole dynasty is lost. You're saving a life, you're saving an entire world. With that, together with that, says the Mishnah, creating one human being was bringing out the greatness of God. Because a mint could create 1,000,000 pennies with the same stamp and they all look the same. But over here, God created a universe of human beings from the same human being, from one human being, and we all look different. Like no two snowflakes are alike, no two human beings are alike. And what's the message of that? The message is, just like we understand that Adam had a unique mission that no one else could accomplish, the fact that we look different and we are different means that every single one of us brings something unique to the table that only I, with my unique qualities, is able to accomplish. And in that sense, I am unique, I am the only one, and God needs me. Yes, sorry.
I'm sorry, It also shifts away from the conversation about genetics of what we inherit, because every one of us is not enhanced or limited. In fact, if you believe all things come from source, everything past that is limited in some different way, because it's a derivative of, where this is saying, yeah, I don't care who your parents chose to marry and make you. We're all starting from the same base and have equal chance of being way outstanding, right?
Interesting.
And so it's different than how we think about genetics. Like, oh, no, I have good parents, but I think other parents. You never know. It's not really about that. You're saying we all still come from that same base.
Right.
It's all-
That's
something
very interesting as well. Okay, so I'm going to play a short video, which will, I think, bring up.
Well, yeah, but you.
If humanity is an enormous extended family, we stand to gain an estimated average of 380,000 siblings each day. That's the staggering rate at which babies are born into this sunny planet, which kind of makes us, as individuals, as redundant as a drop of rain amid a raging rainstorm, doesn't it? Well, Judaism dares to differ. The Torah begins with a narrative of absolute creation. God creates things into being from sheer nothingness. God is not stingy. He creates countless cows, dozens of doves, and battalions of butterflies. He commands into existence sufficient shrubs, trees, and delightful daffodils to swaddle the newborn landscape in lush foliage. When all is set up and running, God turns his attention to the point of it all: the creation of unique creatures whose bodies, carved from the clay of corporality, and spirits hewn from the heights of heaven, would serve as bridges between Creator and creation. At that point, God makes an astonishing move. Instead of hatching a herd of humans or composing a complete population, God creates just one, a single lonely mortal. The ancient Jewish sages explain this mystery. God was sending a message to each individual across all of time and under any circumstance. You matter. Not as a drop in an endless flow of people. Not as a statistic, but as an individual. You are equal to all of humanity in God's eyes. No, you didn't choose to be born, but God chose to create you because his world was incomplete without you. You are irreplaceable to him, and he delighted in your birth, just as he rejoiced over the first human. Your actions are no less meaningful and precious than that of the first person upon whom the eyes of all the heavens and the fate of all the earth rested. Your birth was a divine statement, a divine investment. It was God himself singing out loud into your ears, "You matter. Believe in yourself."
Good. And ultimately, this idea creates the greatest responsibility, recognizing that my mission is on my shoulders and no one else could accomplish that. For whatever reason, God needs me. And it's up to me to fulfill whatever he needs, to fill in that gap. So talking about responsibility, there was Chaim that was looking for a job. He had a hard time finding a job. And he's going from interview to interview till finally one of the managers tells him, we're looking for someone that's responsible. He says, sure, the last job I was at, every time something went wrong, they said, Chaim, you're responsible. Okay, so talking about life having inherent value, we don't have to find the meaning of life. So my father said this great story, and the truth is that in the book they bring it from a medrash, but I thought that the story is more powerful. But it's quoted. So this idea is quoted in the medrash. My father says that he was doing a bar mitzvah, and every bar mitzvah he would talk to the boy, and just try to have some sort of meaning with him, some sort of meaningful conversation. And Arnie Hers was doing a bar mitzvah for his son, Gabe. And Gabe came in and my dad was chatting with him, trying to find the opportunity to put in the rabbi's speech. And at one point, my dad said, what's your experience with Judaism so far? And he shared with my father that every day he makes it a point to say the Shema with his dad. And if they don't do it in person, if his dad's traveling, so they'll call on the phone and they'll do the Shema together. And my dad asked him, why is it that during the Shema we cover our eyes? And he expected the boy to say, I don't know. And at that point, he would say whatever he wanted to say. And sure enough, Gabe looked at him and he said, the reason why we cover our eyes by Shema is because we meditate. That there's nothing more important to me than God. And there's nothing more important to God than me. And our sages tell us that just as important as it is to believe in God, it's just as important to recognize that God believes in me. And a lack of belief, a lack of recognition in the belief in ourselves is a lack of belief in God who created the world and created me with the purpose for why I exist, for the need for my existence. And in that sense, each and every one of us are perfect. So often we look at others and we compare ourselves to others. If only I had his brains and her emotions and their ability. Our uniqueness with our flaws make us the greatest to fulfill what we could accomplish and no one else could accomplish. So last time I gave this class on Sunday, so I shared that a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine who is extremely talented, has a lot of energy. He always assumed, he never got assessed for it, but he always assumed that he has ADD or something. And he can't sit still, which makes him so incredible. And he's a very passionate person, very talented, out of the box thinker, so much fun to be around. And the last couple of years when we were in yeshiva together and his job was to study, he had a difficult time studying. He had a difficult time paying attention. And often he considered going for evaluation and perhaps to get medication so he should be able to focus more. And whether that was the right thing or the wrong thing to do, what many people told him was, whatever decision you make, you should take into account that you have this great personality and you stand out in such a way that it would be a shame to lose that. It would be a shame to not have that uniqueness that you have. And that was something that very much spoke to him, but he was torn because he was like, well, right now I'm in yeshiva and my purpose is to be studying. So it could be that I'm great at so many other things, but I'm not good at studying. Should I be helping myself with that? And he was unsettled until one of his rabbis, who's a leading rabbi in the Chabad world, someone who's incredibly respected, probably one of the greatest scholars in Chabad alive today, who also has a lot of energy, told him something very special. He said, Yossi, when we're in class and I ask a question, you'll come up with answers that no one in the class could have possibly thought of. Your thought process will be so out of the box. Your perspective on the learning, on the studying that we're doing will be so unique that that's what makes you stand out. That's what brings your uniqueness to the table. And for him, that was someone telling him, no, you're not just special in all other areas, but your flaws, your clear flaws in learning is what makes you unique in learning, is why you're a pleasure to have in the classroom. And I think that's true across the board. When we think about our weaknesses and our strengths, it's the combination, it's the perfect nuance that makes us special in the society eyes and more importantly in God's eyes. Because there's something that God wants to accomplish that he cannot accomplish with Albert Einstein. And he could accomplish it with me and with you and with everyone around this table.
But unfortunately with society, I don't know how old this man was when this happened, but in society, when you're in school and you think outside of the box, it's really wonderful. But you might get the D's and C's and the F's, and that's going to put you behind. And you'll want to get those A's and B's, and that's when those children want to get the medication.
Sure,
Because
sure.
brain-
So I'm not addressing that specific question. That's beyond the scope of my,
No.
of
But it's a shame because
right. So that is what it is, and everyone will deal with it how to deal with it. But the point I think is clear. Okay, so now the question becomes, okay, Rabbi, so I'm special, I'm unique, humanity is unique, but I as an individual is unique, but I'm not accomplishing my mission. Perhaps I'm not living up to what my potential is. So how do I remain happy when I feel like I'm not fulfilling my individual purpose, my individual mission? And the answer to that is going to be, we have to learn to notice our good qualities over our negative qualities, to notice our accomplishments over our shortcomings. Does that mean to ignore our shortcomings? Absolutely not. It means to notice them, but not define ourselves by them. So with that, I'm going to ask you to turn to page 61. There's a text from the Rebbe, text 8. BA, take it away.
61.
61, text 8.
There's a well-known teaching of the rabbis of Chabad. Just as we need to know the defects, so too we need to know our strengths. The anomaly in this phrase is that it says our strengths, but with regards to defects, it merely says the defects, not our defects. What's the reason for this? Leviticus 4:2 states, when the soul sins, and discuss the process of rectification. The Zohar, however, phrases this as a question. A soul sin, is that possible? Meaning the concept of sin is completely alien to our being. Even when we stumble, God forbid, it doesn't undermine who we are. Rather, it's something outside our nature that is latched onto us. We're residents of a material and mundane world. It is therefore possible for something unholy to attach itself to us. Though it is a defect in the sense, it is not our defect, but the defect imposed on us by our environment.
Okay, so I think what makes Judaism unique in a certain sense is that when it comes to the conversation of punishment versus reward, is there heaven and hell? Judaism will always take the path that who are we inside? We're a soul. And a soul is purely good. A soul is a piece of God. So never could our destiny be evil. Never could our destiny be punishment. Punishment, in quotes, would be the process of cleansing ourselves to go back to our initial state, to be back to who we were. That's one of the reasons why the Rebbe was so against the concept, the inherent concept of prison. Because prison is putting a tag on someone saying, you belong here. Prison is saying, we're not going to let you out in the streets because you are a murderer or you are a burglar. Giving a punishment is actually redeeming the person from that state. So prison might be necessary in certain situations, but the general concept of prison is actually pushing someone further into that label, where they label themselves as such. Our shortcomings, which we definitely have, are for us to know about, to know where to go to the next step. How am I going to accomplish what I want to accomplish? But I don't define myself by that. My definition is my accomplishments. My definition is my godly soul, which is untouchable, which is always clean and always connected to God. And with that, we would address our shortcomings, right? So there was someone growing up that I was very close to in my father's Chabad, and I would study with him Hasidus. And there was one point that he turned to me and he said, Levi, it's not fair that I have this clarity of the truth, of godliness, of my connections to God at 50 something years old. When in reality, I should have had this when I was a little kid, like you, and how is this fear? And why am I only coming around to it now? And Chassidus teaches us that everything is with a purpose, which is another conversation. And God put you there in that situation because you have something to accomplish that I can't accomplish. But another point is your past, in terms of your shortcomings, is only knowledge to know where do I go from here? What does God want me to accomplish? But that doesn't label me. My label is that I have a soul, which is a piece of God inside, which is untarnished and pure. Okay, so that would deal with, I hope, the issues, the flaws. Why am I not accomplishing what I have to accomplish? Past tense. However, I think that that's a difficult thing to demand of ourselves. Meaning, if I'm constantly assessing myself, looking at myself and saying, what's my strengths, what's my weaknesses, and trying to kind of label myself with my strengths and not label myself with my weaknesses, it's a difficult path to take. Because I'm always involved with myself, and I'm bound to sometimes label myself with my flaws and fall into that trap and fall into that pit of sadness and anxiety or what have you. And Chassidus teaches us that there's a high road. Chassidus teaches us that we don't have, the way to deal with our flaws is not only by labeling ourselves with our accomplishments, but there's actually a high road, and that high road is called humility. Now, people might view humility as pushing myself down, or perhaps seeing myself lower and not as important and not as valued. And that would kind of be the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here, which is boosting your self-esteem. And in reality, humility is not low self-esteem. Neither is humility self-disparagement, meaning, beating myself up or telling people that I'm less than who I actually am. Neither is humility the middle path of kind of, not putting myself out there as much as I could, being average, not standing out. That's not what humility is, right? So there's the great joke about humility, where it was on Yom Kippur in front of the whole synagogue, and the rabbi in great, in great whatever it was, meditation, throws himself in front of the ark and he screams, "God, I'm nothing before you." And shortly after, the cantor follows and he throws himself on the floor in front of the ark and he says, "God, I'm nothing before you." And Yankel, in the back of the shul, comes to the front and he throws himself in front of the ark and he says, "God, I'm nothing before you." And the cantor turns to the rabbi and he says, "Look who thinks he's nothing." So that's not what humility is about. So what is humility about? So I'm going to ask you to turn to page 65, text number 9. And this is an absolutely great text. We're going to do text 9 as well as text 10. Suzanne, I'll ask you to read, and I'll ask you to do it a little slowly so we could follow the message, because they're very powerful. It's very powerful. Go for it. 9 and 10.
Humility is not synonymous with feelings of inferiority or with not finding within yourself any good, or with thinking that you are on a bad path, God forbid. To have humility means to not censor yourself. Although you are good and on the correct path in matters of the Torah and Mitzvah, and although that you are committed to serving God with great sacrifice, nevertheless, you do not self-aggrandize, or think that you have reached some unique level. It is not that you do not know about your good, it's that you don't claim credit or think that you have earned special standing. And this results from being completely unabsorbed in yourself.
Text 10.
Yep. If you're feeling your head or one of your limbs, it indicates illness. Healthy people do not feel their limbs. The same applies in the spiritual sense. If you are feeling your own existence, which indicates an illness of character, namely arrogance. Those who are spiritually healthy do not kill themselves.
Okay. So what does humility mean? Humility means someone that doesn't spend time being aware of themselves. They're not self-focused, they're mission-focused, they're purpose-focused. What could I accomplish? Powerful.
It's a deep concept.
Being humble is about, instead of being self-focused,
Yeah.
purpose-focused, purpose-oriented, right? So what's the focus of my life? What am I gonna do today? What could I accomplish? What am I needed for? People that are self-focused are very needy people. And what people don't realize is that people that come across arrogant are people with the lowest self-esteem. Why is that? Because they're extremely needy. Why are they needy? And this is a deep concept. We're not talking about it for too long, but I'm just going to mention it. Max Friedman talks about this a lot. He says, people that see themselves as a mistake, I'm created by mistake, I have no purpose, are needy because they say, if I'm here by mistake, then I have nothing to give. Rather, I have to take from everyone. And that creates boasting people. That creates people that constantly are looking for other people's validation. Give me, narcissistic, versus a needed person, someone that recognizes I am created with a purpose, with a mission. I'm unique. I'm needed. I don't think about myself. I think about, where am I to give? What could I fill in? What's my purpose? Where could I give? It's not about me, right? The doctor that's in the hospital during the pandemic is not going to get sick because he's living on a higher plane. He never stopped to think about himself. His energy is an energy of soul, pure soul, because he's so needed. He doesn't get tired because he's so needed. He doesn't stop to think, I'm so tired, I need a rest, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. He forgets about his own needs. He rises beyond it because he realizes that he is so needed. And just like a healthy person doesn't feel their arm. If we feel our arm, then we go to the doctor. If we feel our head, we go to the doctor. If we start asking, what's the connection between our head and our arm? We go to the doctor. A healthy person is someone that lives. And being self-aware, too self-aware, is an unhealthy balance of constantly thinking about myself and obsessing with myself. And that's where we obsess over our shortcomings. But if we were to be humble, i.e., focused on purpose-focused, purpose-oriented, we wouldn't think about our shortcomings, not because we don't have them, but because it's not about me. It's about what I could accomplish. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of the greatest teachers of our time, on his deathbed, he told his students, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm going to go to heaven or hell. And that was the weirdest thing ever. You're talking about a saint. You're talking about someone that never sinned in his life. You're talking about one of the greatest Torah scholars in history. Someone that saved the Jewish nation after the destruction of the temple. And Hasidic masters explain, he never stopped to think about himself. He never stopped to think, how am I doing? How much have I accomplished? What's my score in life? He didn't know his score. Because he constantly did and did. He gave and he gave and he gave. He never scored himself. He never thought, yes, I'm accomplished. Yes, I'm a good person.
Right.
That's humility. Humility is like the violinist that is focused on the music. She's not thinking about herself. She's focused on the music. Or the soldier in battle that doesn't doubt his self-worth. Talk about battles that were important battles. Soldiers running to the front lines. Do you think that for a second they're going to stop and say, what's my self-worth? They have a mission. They have a purpose. They have something to accomplish. It's not even about what I did and what I accomplished. And yes, of course I have self-worth. That they don't have time to think about that. That's not on their agenda. They're here to do. They're needed. Period. So if they could shoot a little better, shoot a little worse, they're not assessing themselves right now. They're not looking at they're not self-conscious. They're not looking at their shortcomings. Okay. there's a number of nice texts here, but I want to move because we're over time. And I apologize for that. There's something on page 68 from Viktor Frankl. And I'm going to leave that for now. And let's wrap this up. So this explains why these days depression is on a unique high, because we've become so self-absorbed. We're afraid to tell a child that they're needed because we don't want them to feel like we're demanding from them, like everything is about giving them and making them feel. You're making them feel needy. You're making them become self-absorbed. You're making them feel small. You're not empowering them. You're not giving them the ability to rise up above themselves, to push their limits, to be better than themselves.
You could kill somebody with too much love.
Yes. Okay, to finish off, this concept is not about all or nothing. So it's not about, am I humble or am I not humble? But it's an exercise. So if we could stop every day, whether it's during the Shema prayer or once a week, and think about, who am I? And I want to say a beautiful story about that, a quick story. The fourth Chabad Rebbe had a student that came to him that was very serious about growing in his Judaism. And he told the Rebbe that part of his development was that he was incorporating many fasts into his weekly schedule, that he wouldn't eat. He would refrain from eating as part of refining himself and becoming a better person. And the Rebbe Maharash told him, not eating is not fasting. Not eating is called dieting. He said, you know what fasting is? You want to do an exercise to be a better person? He said, think about yourself for 15 minutes every day. And I always thought that, what does that mean? Think about yourself for 15 minutes every day. I always thought that means to think about how terrible you are and the things that you did wrong, to realize that you're not a perfect person and you could be better. But the Rebbe said, no, that's not what he meant. You know what he meant when he said, think about yourself for 15 minutes every day? It meant to think about your soul. Where did your soul come from? Your soul is a piece of God. Your soul is blissful. Your soul is beautiful. Your soul is unblemished by anything that you've ever done in your past. Nothing stands in your way. You could accomplish anything. We constantly walk around the whole day judging ourselves by our actions. When do we stop and say, I'm bigger than my actions? I have a soul. And that's really who I am, and nothing can stand in my way. If God created me, that means he trusts himself in me. And putting 15 minutes a day, that's a long time, or 2 minutes a day, or 2 minutes a week, to think about the purity that sits within me, the treasure that God put inside of me, that I hold inside, that he entrusted me with, that's pure, that's untainted, that's beautiful, and that could accomplish anything that I put my mind to. That's self-betterment. That's self-improvement. Realizing who I really am inside. Okay, so I want that to be our takeaway from this class. Thinking about an exercise that we could possibly do. I'll give you 2 minutes on page 69. You can grab your pen. And here's an exercise, take away from the class. What is something that we could possibly help ourselves, at least for this coming week, that will enhance our happiness and our overall well-being? That's always good. Your questions are good. What's your question?
So does Hasidim or does this believe, okay, we did our journey of the soul class, which I would love to repeat. So I go and I look at the book. If we are a soul, when you think about your soul, God put us here in order to learn lessons. So he does things or things happen, okay? And we know mine, whatever. So I try to ask, what am I supposed to be learning? And I don't think we ever find that out. We just have to do, meaning I know there are certain things that I just say, okay.
We've spoken about this then, about what is my purpose, what is my mission. And
No, I'm going more towards, I'm here because God put me here because I'm supposed to learn lessons. So anything that he has put in front of me, okay, whether it is, we're not gonna go down the list right now. What am I supposed to learn, or what is supposed to happen? I mean, I do know that I have saved lives because of what has happened. Okay, and I am refusing an honor for it, because I do not believe that I deserve an honor for it. But it's really, where do you find out, like, okay, you know, like, I'm tired of learning.
I still think
You know,
I still think you should take the honor because the Rebbe was a big fan of being honored for your
you know,
accomplishments.
that's what it is.
Because,
But I will tell you, go
yeah,
on.
because for the greater good, it will help other people do
Yes,
that as well.
that's exactly, however, I would prefer, because it's political, prefer to do it in another venue. I will help people be able to do what I did, but not in this particular organization, because I don't necessarily agree. So when things start becoming political, that's why.
Okay.
So it's a little, that's why I was wondering,
So,
about that privately, but that's exactly what your mommy said, okay? And they
Well,
what your brother
The
said.
bottom line is that there are times,
It's like, I want to know, what am I supposed to be learning?
and definitely spiritual people that are more in tune, and for them, they get a direct message. And you know, if there were people that wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told them, this is what you're supposed to do, this is your mission, this is your lesson, or whatever it might be.
And there's nobody around here that can do that now.
Right. So for us, for people that don't have that sort of connection, the answer is twofold, and in a way it's deeper and even more special. The answer number one is that God, and this is for another class, but I'm just going to give you the one foot. The answer number one is God is bigger and more talented and more capable than having to verbally tell you what your mission is. He could give you the message otherwise. And the reason why that's special, I'll tell you the reason why that's special, is because because for God to send me a saint, or to send me a sign, or to send me a person, it's going to tell me what my mission is, no big whoop. For me to believe that God is so one in creation, that he really owns creation, that when I landed somewhere, I landed there because God wanted me to be there. That's a whole new level of belief in the unity of God, recognizing that God controls the world, that the situation that I landed in, which has nothing, seems to have nothing to do with God, was godly orchestrated and constructed. That's true unity. In that sense, we bring about God's truth in the world more than someone that's more connected to God, because we are accomplishing that. No, God doesn't need to send a fax or an email to let you know what you have to do. He's gonna get you there.
So in my
Give me one
mind.
second. Give me 1 second.
Sorry.
That's number one. Number two is, okay, well, I'm gonna answer number two, and then I'm gonna go to the key points, and then we'll have questions, because I just want to finish the class. Number two is divine providence means that everything has a purpose individually. Now, that's an idea which is impossible to fathom. It's impossible to understand, but it's true, and it's possible to act upon. And what I mean by that, and this is going to be a wild statement, but it's a true statement. Divine providence means that the fact that I spoke and the fact that you heard me have nothing to do with each other. The fact that I spoke is because God wanted me to speak, and the fact that you heard me is because God wanted you to hear me individually. There's a purpose for me why I had to speak, and there's a purpose for you why you had to hear, and there's a purpose why you heard it from me and not from someone else, while you could have heard it from anyone else, you could have heard it from nobody. You could have put it in your brain. The divine providence means that every detail of something is with a purpose, not with a purpose, like it's gonna get somewhere, but everything is its own purpose. And therefore, when we come to the situation and say, okay, so what's my lesson? Is my lesson this or my lesson that? You know, it's both. If you saw both, then it's both. Because if you saw both, that means that God wanted you to see both. You wouldn't have seen both if he didn't want you to see both.
And you hear it in a different way. I may hear it in a different way than a
exactly
certain
right.
word
That's
than
right.
you.
Okay,
That's
I'm
right.
17 minutes over time, so I'm just gonna do the key points.
Okay, go.
And then everyone wants to stay, we could stay. So
Okay.
key points, number one, the way we, and this is also in your booklet, I'm not sure what page, like probably page 70.
Here it is.
The way we perceive ourselves is crucial to our emotional well-being. A negative self-image or feeling dispensable can impede our happiness. The Torah's creation narrative conveys that the human being is created in the divine image. In order to partner with God to advance civilization and to make the world a more godly place. Every individual is indispensable for this project, as each person has a task that only he or she can fulfill. Thus, birth is God saying, you matter. When we internalize the messages from the Torah about the human being, we emerge with a God-based, well-grounded perception of ourselves as important and indispensable. We are also empowered to seize comparing ourselves to others and their accomplishments, recognizing that we have our own purpose. When we find ourselves focusing on our flaws, we need to ensure that our assessment is accurate. This includes remembering that just as we need to know our shortcomings, so we must know our strengths. Indeed, we often need a mentor or good friend to help us gain a balanced self-concept. When engaged in accurate assessment, we will surely find many redeeming qualities that lead us to take a positive view of ourselves. Number 5, when we internalize the messages from the Torah about the human being, we emerge with a God-based, well-grounded perception of ourselves as important and indispensable. We are also empowered to seize comparing ourselves to others and their accomplishments. No, I'm repeating myself. No, I'm not repeating myself. Yeah. There's a mistake. Number 7, because we are purposeful beings, we find happiness when we are true to who we are, completely focused on our purpose. And thank you for joining me today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.